Hello everyone, John Flynn here from Flynn Real Estate, Southern Ontario, Hamilton, Niagara region. Thanks for tuning in. We had a kind of exciting week, especially today with some announcements. And first of all, I just want to let everyone know I am moving my property tours to a different channel. So I know most people on this channel watch the market updates like I'm doing now, and then I upload my property tours, and people are like, what is this? But so there's not as many subscribers obviously for property tours, so moving those to a different channel, so you're not going to get those in the feed. It's just going to be these videos about the Canadian housing market. Today I'm going to talk about just some stats, some mid-month stats, the CPI and how it affects the housing market, or the inflation numbers that came out, I believe it was last week. And the big news today that we're going to talk about is the Liberal NDP announcement of their working agreement, supply and something agreement, whatever they called it, coalition kind of, and how it's going to affect housing. I'm not going to get into politics too much, but how it affects the housing market. So I'll quickly just start off with some stats. I've noticed the market might have, slowed down a little bit. It's still very good, mind you, but anyway, I just said, well, let's look at these stats mid-month and see where we're at. So first one, again, these are all from Niagara and Hamilton, 18,000 listings or whatever in here. This is from 12 months back. But you can see in March this year, the days to sell is still down over previous months. So would indicate the market's obviously still very strong. The next one is the close price to the original list price. So what percentage of the asking price homes are selling for? Of course, it's still more than 100% because we list them low and sell high. And you can see February was up, but it has come down a bit. And we'll get more into these in a couple of weeks when I get the official numbers for March. March obviously isn't over, so I'm just, again, generalizing and looking at preemptive numbers here. But you can see it is down. February was a good month, and it's the sale prices compared to list price are down in that ratio. And lastly, the average sale price, and that has come down a little bit from February. February it peaked, and it's down a bit. So there has been a little slowing, which that's relative because slowing as opposed to a slow market. We're not even close to a slow market. So market's still very, very good. I guess if you're a seller, very, very active, high prices. They're not really moving much. We'll see at the end of the month what happens with this. Next, I want to get into the inflation numbers for February in Canada. The States was 7.9%. This consumer price index, right? That's when we're talking about inflation. That's what we refer to. In Canada, it was 5.7, and that's still a big number. And I just want to pull up to put that in reference here. If we look at and I'm, again, just looking at the real estate mainly. Obviously, we're talking about real estate here. So shelter costs rise at fastest pace since 1983 in Canada. And it was 6.6 year over year from February this year to last year. Fastest pace since 1983. Higher costs for both owned accommodation and rented accommodation. Of course, we know property values have gone up a lot more than 6.6%, but this is an average, right? So these things focus on averages. Some people have no extra costs, other people do. Here is the main categories, and of course I've got shelter highlighted. Shelter takes up 30%, or in the weighted distribution, or they call it the basket of goods. 30% is from shelter or housing. And again, it went up 6.6% since last year. Now, I just want to point out, when you get approved for a new mortgage, CMHC for gross debt GDS, your ratio, your lowest ratio, that just includes your housing costs, is like 39 for an insured mortgage from CMHC. And then an uninsured could be anywhere from 32 and up, depending on the bank or credit union you're dealing with. So on average, it's 30% for Canadians. But again, if you are getting a new mortgage, it's going to be higher. It could be 40% you're going to need to qualify at. So just keep that into consideration. Here's a list of the biggest movers the most upward in movement and the most downward movement. So of course gasoline, now gasoline's only like 3.5% of your monthly or yearly expenses in Canada. So it's not a big portion. The homeowner's replacement cost went up 13.2% and other owned accommodations 14.3%. So you can see out of the top 5 movers, real estate is in 3 of them and vehicles are the other 2. The downward, I want to point out one thing in the downward, or actually 2 things. I'm going to point out 2 things in the downward. Mortgage interest cost. Again, this is an average. Rates haven't gone down in the last year, but maybe people are renewing from 5 years ago. Whenever the interest is lower. Now, this is an average because we all know prices are up. Your interest on mortgages is actually probably greater for new home buyers, but on average, for the average Canadian, interest costs have gone down. Now, we'll see once interest rates go up now, they're going up, that's going to change. So that will add to the inflation number and boost it. So that's going to be interesting to see how it affects. One thing I noticed, travel tours. So travel tours went down almost 18%. Of course, they went down 18% when a lot of people can't travel or don't want to travel. When that returns, when people are traveling at a normal pace, that's going to add to the increased inflation numbers too, right? So just keep that in mind. And one thing I just wanted to point out with the CPI, it's kind of a dry subject, but it's an important, right? Well, the details of it are dry, I should say. So upcoming enhancements, and it's just, you got to keep an eye on this because it's so complex. I went on the website and there's so many different things to look at. You'd have to spend like days analyzing this to really scrutinize or agree or disagree with it. But in the second paragraph here, under the upcoming announcements, it says, with the release of the March CPI on April 20th, when they do the next one for March, new sources of administrative data will be introduced for the mortgage interest cost index. So I guess they're changing something. So that'll be interesting. You got to watch what they change, right? Are they doing it in our best interest or not? So yeah, keep an eye out for that. We're going to keep an eye on the inflation as it keeps going and see how it's going to affect. Obviously, we all know inflation is an issue. With housing, it's going to be an issue. And one thing I wanted to point out, approximately 25% of Canadians don't have mortgages. So of course, there's no increase in hard housing costs for them. Yes, they have things like utilities that have gone up. Now, if you just bought a house in the last year or two, or rented, if you've rented a place and you've been living in it for 10 years and the landlord sold it, and you have to rent a new place, your housing costs are going up over 100% most likely. Same with buying a house. If you're just got into the market, you're going to have you could be 40-50% of your income. So again, this is based on an average of the average Canadian. Some people have no mortgages, some people have big mortgages. Now on to the big news. I'm going to try not get political here or bring my political views into it. I'm going to bring my opinion into it, but not my political views. So today, the big news, and again, it does affect, and we're going to get into it, it does affect housing, and this is why I'm bringing this up, because I want to know how's this going to affect housing. So today, the Liberals and the NDP federal parties decided to join each other, kind of. They say it's not a coalition, but it is an agreement. They call it a supply and confidence agreement that's going to last until 2025 because they don't want, I guess it's in their best interest not to go through another election that's costly, but they have to agree on things. And of course, anyone on the other side of the fence is calling this some socialist agenda, which I kind of agree it is a socialist agenda. I'm not against providing money for social programs. So it says delivering for Canadians now. This is the theme. So they're delivering for Canadians now. So let's see how they're going to help the average consumer with housing. I guess the summary of this was the agreement will mean the NDP agrees to support the government on confidence and budgetary matters, notably on budgetary policy. So this is a finance budget issue, and this is why this is happening. It's all about the finance and the budget, which obviously we know is a major concern for people, Canadians, no matter where you're from, whether you've got lots of money and you're thinking about selling your house, or whether you have no money and little money, or you want to buy a house. So as per the theme of my video this week, or on my thumbnail, number one, their number one thing, and they put them in order. I believe they're in order. There's like 7 or 8 of them, and it gets, third one is environmental. But it's the NDP. They want healthcare, universal dental, things like that. The number one thing on their agenda, on their coalition, it's not a coalition, but I'm going to call it a coalition agenda, is dental and pharmacare for low-income families. Right? This is for, you got to keep in mind, this is for low income. This is not for middle class or what you'd call middle income people. So launching a new dental care program for low income Canadians would start with under 12-year-olds in 2022, then expand to under 18-year-olds, seniors, persons living with a disability. Program would be restricted to families with an income of less than $90,000 annually, with no co-pays for anyone under $70,000 annually. So first of all, I guess low income is under 90,000 now. I thought like the average income was like 80 or something, but anyway, maybe I'm out of touch with things. So if you're low income, it says right there, low income. I find it hard to believe. Let me know what you think. We could probably just look it up, but I want to know your thoughts. And then we have co-pays. Now, copay, that's like an American term. I hear that with their healthcare or their co-pays. And I understand, but this is when it comes to a universal healthcare systems and pharmacare. So I guess that's with the pharmacare and the dental. So it's for low income, and it's a socialist or social agenda, right? You're taking care of a certain, I guess, income bracket people, and that's fine. But this is the number one issue. So I wanted to bring up the start of this, because this kind of sets the grounds for the rest, for what I believe is the rest of this agreement between these parties. And we'll see the theme here, and I'm gonna go through them and see what we can find. So let's move on to housing, and this is why we're here, right? Let's talk about housing. So the housing, making life more affordable for people. Sounds great. I'm in on that. Lots of buyers are in on it too. So the first one, and I believe these things go in order of importance, because we started with, like I said, dental and pharmacare. Second most important, housing. Perfect. I agree with that too. I think healthcare and housing are both top things to budget for and to think about. Extend the Rapid Housing Initiative for an additional year. I haven't heard about this Rapid Housing Initiative. Let's check it out here. So the Rapid Housing Initiative. The Rapid Housing Initiative aims to create new affordable housing for people and populations who are vulnerable. All right, I don't know if this is like the average Canadian, or I don't think it is. Thank you for your interest in the Rapid Housing Initiative. We are no longer accepting applications at this time. So I believe they wanted to extend it from what it said. Let's go back here. Extend it, yeah. So they've had it in place. I think they've had it in place for a year now. And what I read briefly was their goal was to build 3,000 more housing units, affordable housing units for low-income families. And now they want to have an additional 4,700. So 7,700 housing units, low-income. All right, no, we can't complain with housing, right? But it's not addressing affordable housing for average middle class, working class Canadian citizens. But let's go further here. The next issue on the agenda, refocusing the rental construction financing initiative on affordable units over 80% AMR and use 80% AMR or below as a definition of affordable housing. All right, we got more affordable housing here. Let's see what this is all about. Rental Construction Financing Initiative. So what they want to do is provide an easier financing solution for companies or people to create rental housing or units construction to, again, this is about renting, right? This is not about the dream of home ownership. So I'm just going to leave that there, but that's their next thing. Affordable rental housing units and for I guess, developers and builders to be able to build them. Most developers and builders like to do condos because they're a lot more profitable. But I think this would help somewhat, but it's not going to help you buy a house. So we're going to move on here. Moving forward on launching a housing accelerator fund. So this sounds interesting. This sounds promising, actually. A housing accelerator fund. So this was first of all, a call for ideas. This is not a program that's currently in place. And the core piece I took away from it was, by continuing to make investments in affordable housing, the government is building stronger communities, creating jobs, and growing our middle class, all while working to end chronic homelessness and help vulnerable Canadians. So it talks about rent-to-own options, and it's the government, right? The government is building, the government is controlling this or creating ideas. So something that's going to happen in the future, but it hasn't happened, and it's like a think tank program. So they could be on the right track for something, but right now it's just talk. There's nothing. It's nothing specific. It's let's dream up some ideas and see what we can do to help some people and more vulnerable people and regular people too. I think it is. But all right. This is an interesting one. Implementing a home buyer's bill of rights and tackling the financialization of the housing market by the end of 2023. So this would be the most relevant. The homeowner's bill of rights. I hope it's not like our charter of rights, because that kind of comes and goes whenever they see. And again, this is my opinion. People who know me, I'm not going to go on about our charter of rights and freedoms lately, but let's hope they respect it if they do come up with a homeowner's bill of rights. So this was the Liberal Bill of Rights proposal or proposition when they were talking about, this was before the last election. You can see here, a re-elected Liberal government will create a national home buyer's bill of rights so that the process of buying a home is fair, open, and transparent. I think that's what everyone's pushing for, and I agree with that. It's our home buying process is outdated, especially in this market, and we probably should have an open and transparent bidding process. Convene federal and provincial regulators to develop a national action plan to increase consumer protection and transparency in real estate transactions. Anytime the government gets involved, I'm not happy, but whatever. It's not everything they do is bad. So yeah, we'll see what they have to say about that. So here's what the Home Buyer's Bill of Rights will do. It's a home buyer's bill of rights too. It's not a homeowner's bill of rights. So let's get that straight. It's for the buyers, not for the sellers. Ban blind bidding, which prevents bidders from knowing the bids of other prospective buyers, and it does drive up the price. I'll agree with that. Establish a legal right to a home inspection to make sure that the buyers have the peace of mind that their investment is sound. Right now you do have a right to a home inspection. I don't know if they're going to mandate it. Like you have to have a home inspection. I don't know how they're saying establish a legal right. You do have a legal right, but now if you're going to put one in your offer, you're probably going to lose because they're going to sell it to someone who doesn't have one. So I don't know. That's going to be interesting. I have to mandate it. It's going to have to become mandatory. Ensure total transparency on the history of recent house sale prices on title searches. All right. Yeah, sure. Require real estate agents to disclose when they are involved in both sides of a potential sale to all participants in a transaction. Well, we have to do that already in Ontario. Maybe in other parts of the country they don't, but that's nothing new. Move forward with a publicly accessible beneficial ownership registry. Seems like I don't know. I don't know about that. That's like a privacy issue, but whatever. I haven't seen the details, so I can't knock it. But I'm a little iffy on that one. Ensure banks and lenders offer mortgage deferrals for up to 6 months in the event of job loss or other major life event. So we learned in the beginning of the pandemic when they deferred your mortgage, like that, all that interest is still due when you defer it for 6 months, right? It's not like you get off interest free. So you do have to pay that. And I guess who's going to pay for this mortgage deferral? Is the government going to tell the bank? And the bank's like, sure, no problem. Don't pay us for 6 months. And require Mortgage lenders act in your best interest so that you're fully informed of the full range of choices at your disposal, including the first-time buyer's incentive. Well, I think most mortgage lenders would inform you about that because it's a bonus. And so I guess maybe you have to check a box on the application to say that they told you. But again, that's the least. It's at the bottom of the page. Okay, so in summary, I think the critics of this agreement, supply and agreement, whatever they call it, it's a coalition. I think that they're probably right when they do call it a socialist agenda. And again, I'm not here to support or not support socialism or whatever you call this. I'm just here to talk about how it affects real estate. But it doesn't, from what I can see, nothing in here immediately affects the people or the clients I would deal with, homeowners and sellers. This is for affordable housing for vulnerable or low-income families. Usually they're, a lot of times, and again, under 90,000, if they're low income, like that's pretty bad. But that's where we're at. If you make 70, 80, 90,000, it gets hard, almost impossible to buy a house. So I guess, have we just grouped a bunch of Canadians into a low-income category now that weren't in it before? I don't know. I don't keep up on these things. I know how much it costs to buy a house. Let me know what you think. I thought low-income families were at a lower family, and these are household incomes. I thought they're at a lower household income than this is. So, summarizing, extending the rapid housing initiative, it's a vulnerable low-income thing. Refocusing rental construction, that is not about ownership, won't affect my clients, people I deal with, unless I'm working with a developer, which I don't do, big developers. The Housing Accelerator Fund, I've read some stuff from like the States where they have these things, but right now it's an idea. They're looking for ideas. There's nothing in there that's going to change. The Home Buyers Bill of Rights, if you look at this, they're talking about by the end of 2023. So we're still almost 2 years away before they would implement this. That's a long time away, right? The house prices went up $100,000 in a month. And we're talking about in 20 months from now or 21 months from now, they're going to implement something when the market will probably change by then. Interest rates will be up. The $500 top up to the housing benefit, I don't know if I skipped that earlier, but that housing benefit is, again, it's a low income, vulnerable family thing where they supplement your payment, your housing payment, or whatever kind of payment that is. And then they talk about the childcare thing, but that's nothing to do with owning a house. So what they're planning to do is give certain Canadians free dental and pharmacare and do nothing or they're going to talk about the housing market, but they're doing nothing for the average Canadian in this announcement today. So this changes nothing. Actually, it makes life more expensive because we're going to have more taxes and bills to pay to fund the government's social spending. And again, I'm not against social spending where it's needed and smart spending to take care of aging and vulnerable populations, but I'm here to talk about the real housing market that people are invested in, people like you. They're probably watching this video. So let me know what you think. I think, again, not impressed today. CPI, obviously 5.7. It looks like it's going to go up. Next month, I'm going to call it's going to be at least equal or go up. I think we're going to hit 6%, maybe 6.5%. And hope the stats helped out the market. Again, it happened like this last year. Last year, January, February were the big spring months. They came early, and then it kind of cooled off a bit. So we are seeing a little bit of a break. I'm not going to call it a cooling at this point, but it is a break. Next interest rate announcements April 13th. That we'll see what happens. Obviously, the bank says they're going to put it up again, but we'll see if they hold true. And I'm going to keep an eye on things. I will have, in a couple of weeks, I will have the actual formal stats for March, so we see how it really did compare. But it looks like it's on a trend that we peaked in February for now, and I think March is going to be a little bit lower on the average sale price. And the days on market, though, is still holding strong, right? So we'll see. But anyway, thanks again for watching. And yeah, subscribe. I'm going to keep these videos coming and try to get some good information going forward, like always. Thank you.